Obsidian Flames was lackluster. 151 didn't live up to expectations. But Paradox Rift is going to represent a major meta shift in the Pokemon TCG when it launches on November 3rd. I could honestly do a top 20 best cards list for this set, but since I'm lazy, we'll just stick with a top 10. If you want to see me cover all the best cards coming in Paradox Rift though, check out my upcoming crafting guide for PTCGL, which should go live next week. Number 10 was the toughest spot of all to decide on. About 10 different cards could have gone here, but at the very least I knew I wasn't going to include Countercatcher. Even though it's awesome, offering up item-based bosses if you're behind on prizes, it's a reprint. So I shifted my focus to purely new cards in the set. Ultimately, after consulting with the Council of Smooth Feet, which is what my Twitch chat insists on being called, I landed on Garchomp EX. Even though it has a lightning weakness, which is a terrible thing going into Paradox Rift, the sheer power cannot be ignored. For a single fighting energy, you deal 160 damage. But the main draw of Garchomp is the attack's secondary effect. Being able to accelerate 3 fighting energy from your discard pile to your bench Pokemon is absolutely huge. This means, should you face a lightning deck, you can run a lot of fighting type attackers and get them powered up quickly. Just be aware that any Pokemon with 120 or less hit points is an easy target for the best card in the set. Or you can use Cheryl in tandem with Garchomp's Free Retreat to survive for multiple turns. Or you can pair it with Arceus V-Star and have 2 reliable attackers. The versatility of Garchomp is a huge asset. There's no way Skeletor GX wasn't going to be on this list. Yes, it's a stage 2, but the ability is absolutely insane. By discarding a basic fire energy from your hand, your Pokemon's attacks do 60 more damage this turn. Not just fire types, any Pokemon. And it stacks. If you somehow manage to get 4 Skeletor GX in play, that's an extra 240 damage each turn. More realistically, you'll probably get around 2 Skeletor GX into play. Still, when is an extra 120 damage a bad thing? Because of that boost, the options are nearly limitless when it comes to a partner. For a straight fire deck, you could use Magma Basin and something like Moltres to deal 210 damage each turn for a single energy on a single prizer. Or you could be extra crazy and pair it with Greedent VMAX. So now instead of dealing 30 damage, it can reliably deal 150 damage turn after turn, while also taking 2 extra prize cards with every KO. I know Skeledirge at number 9 is probably going to age the worst on this list, but I like cards that allow me to whack off as much as possible. And Skeledirge gets my juices flowing like you wouldn't believe. With Paradox Rift, we're getting 4 different Technical Machine tool cards, which allow any Pokemon to use the attack on the card for the required energy. The only downside is that the TM is discarded at the end of the turn. But finding them and using them won't be too difficult, as a supporter like Arven can get you both a tool and an item. There's no definitive best TM because they all serve different purposes in each deck. For spread decks that want to punish stage 2 decks, there's De-Evolution. If you manage to put, say, 70 damage on a Charizard EX that evolved with Rare Candy, you can use De-Evolution. This will send the Charizard back down to a Charmander. Since that Charmander only has 70 hit points, it'll be knocked out and you'll take 1 prize card. While the Charizard EX does go back into their hand, De-Evolution can be a great way to ruin stage 2 decks by running them out of Rare Candy. For TM Evolution, this helps you get off to a better start. For something like Gardevoir EX, now you can evolve your Ralts directly into Kirlia with an attack. Or you can do the same thing with Bidoof and Bibarel. They're both still fodder for the number 1 best card in Paradox Rift though, so keep that in mind. TM Evolution also helps Stage 1 EX decks. Now you no longer have a weak basic sitting on your bench. Instead, you can now have something like 2 Golden Go EX at the end of your first turn. And then there's Turbo Energize. I've seen Lost Zone Dialga V-Star lists in Japan run this, and it's just great for getting energy on your board early. You can attach Energize to your active Mimikyu, or Diancie, or Klefki, or Comfey, then attach 2 basic energy to your bench Pokemon however you want. So instead of relying on something unreliable like Energy Sticker for acceleration, you could now end your first turn with 3 energy in play for very minimal effort. Even the worst TM of the bunch, Blindside, could have some utility in certain decks, sniping 100 damage to a bench Pokemon that already has a damage counter on it. I'm not saying it's good, but it does exist. Whichever one you decide to use, all of the TMs make Standard more consistent. Unless you're a Charizard EX player, then you'll think De-Evolution is the worst card ever printed. The fact that Golden Go EX is number 7 on this list speaks to how crazy Paradox Rift is. For a single metal energy, you can make it rain, dealing 50 damage for each energy you discard from your hand. Get rid of 6 energy, you're KOing every V-Star. Get rid of 7 energy, you're KOing every EX except Blastoise. Then you can get that energy back into your hand with Superior Energy Retrieval, and even Clara, all while hoping that your opponent isn't running the new Toedscruel. While the attack is great, the ability isn't too shabby either. Instead of needing a draw Pokemon like Babarrel, Golden-Go is its own draw Pokemon. Coin bonus draws you 1 card, and if Golden-Go's in the active, it draws 1 more. It's a very linear strategy overall, but unlike Chien-Pao EX that requires setup in the form of the Stage 2 Baxcalibur, Golden-Go can handle the job by itself. People will call me crazy for this, and maybe I am. I did say Energy Sticker was a good card after all, but Roaring Moon EX seems like way too much fun to pass up. For 3 energy, you knock out your opponent's active Pokemon. It comes at the cost of putting 200 damage on Roaring Moon though, but since it's not a self-KO, they still have to deal with it the following turn. And thanks to Emergency Jelly and Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, you can either heal Roaring Moon or boost its max HP to make it a little tougher to KO. And don't ignore the secondary attack. For that same 3 energy, Roaring Moon does 220 damage if you discard a stadium in play. So against something like Lost Box, you don't have to worry about damaging your Emo Salamence. You just bonk and survive. But what about energy? How is 4 Dark Patch going to power up 3 Roaring Moon? Well, it's not. So, do you know what's better than a single Melanie? A double Melanie. Enter Professor Sada's Vitality. This new supporter attaches a basic energy card from your discard pile up to 2 of your ancient Pokemon, then draws you 3 cards. It's a great way to power up the new ancient Pokemon, though you'll mostly only be using it with Roaring Moon and Sandy Cheeks. Professor Sada also pairs perfectly with the new Earthen Vessel item card, which discards a card from your hand and gets 2 basic energy from your deck. Using Roaring Moon as an example of the busted combo, you can use Earthen Vessel to put 2 energy into your hand, then discard them with Ultra Ball or another Earthen Vessel or Cycling Road or Radiant Greninja, then use Professor Sada to put 1 energy on 2 different Roaring Moon. After that, it's a case of using a single Dark Patch and your manual attachment for turn, and your Roaring Moon is ready to attack on turn 1 going second. Despite its place on this list, Earthen Vessel is shaping up to be an absolute banger card in Paradox Rift. It can discard a useless Battle VIP Pass after turn 1, get 2 energy, and then you can use one of those energy to draw 2 cards with Radiant Greninja. You know what? The more I think about it, the more I believe Earthen Vessel should be in the number 2 spot instead of what I actually have there. But this way, people will be more inclined to comment on how dumb I am, so it's staying here. Because Psychic types don't already have Pokemon that accelerate energy, we're getting Xatu in Paradox Rift, which comes in at number 4. The ability, Clairvoyant Sense, allows you to attach a Psychic energy from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon, then draw 2 cards. It's literally just Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX's ability, but with an added benefit. While Shadow Rider only attaches to Psychic types, what makes Xatu great is that you can attach to any of your bench Pokemon regardless of typing. So you could pair this with all sorts of Pokemon that attack for Psychic energy or Colorless energy. But using Paradox Rift as an example, the new Lightning type Mewtwo EX does 10 damage plus 30 more for each Psychic energy attached to all of your Pokemon. Mewtwo EX only really works with Xatu, so don't be surprised to see this running around the ladder on PTCGL. Or you could be a crazy person and make a Xatu Shadow Rider deck and accelerate 6 energy into play every single turn and laugh maniacally at your opponent as you draw 12 cards while simultaneously decking yourself out. What is the number 1 card in Standard that stops single prize or low HP decks in their tracks? Well, I mean, you could say Radiant Greninja because that'll destroy you if you don't have Manaphy down, but I'm talking about Sableye. Being able to spread 12 damage counters on turn 3 or 4 is far too powerful, meaning your 60 hit point basics are just begging to be knocked out. But Jirachi in Paradox Rift is going to fix all of that. The ability is straightforward. Attacks from your opponent's basic Pokemon can't put damage counters on your bench Pokemon. This means all of your bench Pokemon are safe from Sableye's Lost Mine, and you can breathe a little easier as a casual player when they flip over that Comfey. Unfortunately, this means you have to add another support Pokemon to your bench along with Manaphy. So while Jirachi does offer a level of protection against an oppressive card, it comes at the cost of having 1 less bench spot. Oh, and for all of you thinking that damage counter spread decks are completely done, fret not. Jirachi only stops basic Pokemon from spreading. So Mismagius is safe, as is the new Cofagrigus EX, which gives me terrible flashbacks to Dragapult VMAX. So, you know how Floatstone is one of the strongest cards in Expanded? And Muscle Band is also one of the strongest cards in Expanded. The Pokemon Company decided to use polymerization on them to create Future Booster Energy Capsule. When it's attached to a future Pokemon, it not only gives them free retreat, but it allows them to do 20 more damage to your opponent's active. There does need to be an asterisk here though. While Future Booster is indeed an extremely powerful card, its longevity depends solely on whether or not we get more future Pokemon in the future. If this is a Fusion Strike situation where they're only around for one set, it won't be as busted. But if this is a Rapid Strike or Single Strike situation where they're around for an entire year, this card will be insane. Objectively though, this is the second most best card in Paradox Rift. But it could fade into obscurity if future Pokemon don't come to fruition. If that happens, just pretend that I did include Earthen Vessel here so you can revisit this video in a few months and tell me how smart my pants are. It couldn't be anybody else. While some people are claiming that I'm hyping up Iron Hands EX too much, do you know what my response is? Amp you very much for 3 prizes on your Squawkabilly EX turn 1, then Echoing Horn and bosses for game on turn 2. For 4 energy, Iron Hands does 120 damage. But if it takes a knockout with that attack, you get an extra prize card. This means that single prize Pokemon with 120 or less hit points now give up 2 prizes. So Comfey, Cramorant, Ralts, Charmander, Pidgey, Radiant Greninja through weakness, and so much more become liabilities. And 2 prizers that are weak to lightning, like Lumineon V, Squawkabilly EX, Lugia V, Palkia V, and Bombardier EX now give up 3 prizes. And don't forget that you can boost Iron Hand's damage with Choice Belt, Defiance Band, Zapdos, Regieleki VMAX, Ludicolo, or Kingambit to one-shot Pokemon like Pidgeot EX, Palkia V-Star, and Lugia V-Star. Or if you want to avoid all those extra bells and whistles, just attach super effective glasses to do 360 damage against lightning weak Pokemon. And powering it up isn't as crazy as you might think. Miraidon decks have been getting 4 energy into play on turn 1 since the release of Electric Generator. Just use Arven to get a Generator and a Forest Sealstone for your Raikou V, and dig through your deck to attach 4 lightning energy. Or get 2 energy off of 1 Generator and manually attach double turbo energy. If you wanted there to be a massive shakeup in the meta, here you go. And that'll do it. As with most top 10 lists, the placement doesn't really matter. Still, if you think I made a mistake or left out a card that definitely deserves to be here, finger your keyboard and leave your thoughts in the comments. Otherwise, get ready for the insanity that is Paradox Rift, which launches on Thursday, November 2nd in Pokemon TCG Live. There will be 2 new free decks on the Battle Pass at that time, but we'll likely have to wait until next week to learn what they are. Personally, I think they'll go with Golden Go EX and Garchomp EX, unless they want Anarchy, in which case they'll just give everybody Iron Hands EX.